Good evening. So we're back again, session number 2. I'm not going to remember all the session numbers probably, but anyway, today what we're going to do is we're going to look at section 1. And we're going to look at section 1 in general over the first 5 categories. So that's government and systems, looking at the history and theories, the psychological, sociological aspects, the people involved, the United States and the world. And I am going to look at 5 spreadsheets. Later, they're going to be put up so you can look at them too. But they're not up there now. That's why I keep looking down at them. Later on, we're going to try and do it so that maybe I can see them up here or something. But this is still early times. So, the first section is governments and systems. And then the first category is history and theories. And there is a general document. Hopefully, you get to see the general document. And more hopefully, I'm sort of pointing at it. We'll see. So what this is going to show you is these categories: fascist, feudalism, capitalist, economic theories. And then it's going to be talking about the USA in particular: democracy, authoritarianism, totalitarianism, monarchies, hybrid governments, anarchy, representative democracy, republic, Marxism, socialism, communism, social democracies, and democratic socialists, essentially. And we're going to talk about what legal authority they have or take upon themselves, or how they get that authority. We're going to talk about their economic practices, social values, cultural is all I put. So I guess there'll be some things that shape cultures, is what it looks like as I look down the categories. And then features that set it apart. So the purpose of this particular section is going to educate us in what all these things are, so that when people throw these words around as insults or say that they are certain things, that we start to have a sense of what the words actually are supposed to mean. For example, capitalism is an economic system, not a governing system. And we'll talk about the differences. So that's going to be more than likely tomorrow or the following day, but the very next session should be this discussion. And at that point, I'm going to start introducing you to my partner, Rhonda, and she and I will be in conversation with some of the sessions as we get into more depth. Probably haven't told you my name. I'm Heidi. So far, most of you who are watching already know that. Now everybody else knows that. Next, we have the psychological, sociological aspects of governments and systems. And what we did in this case was we wrote down American icons, American icons in the psyche. We just had narrowed it down. We narrowed it down at this point to American because it's something that we knew about, and we brainstormed. And here's what we brainstormed: Lady Liberty, Uncle Sam, Lady Justice, Bald Eagle, G.I. Joe, Liberty Bell, U.S. SEAL, Pledge of Allegiance, Paul Bunyan, Sacagawea, Rosie the Riveter, the 49ers, the Gold Rush ones, not the football, Buffalo Soldiers, Navajo Code Talkers, World War generals, Civil War generals, cowboys, farmers, steel, coal, oil, and gas workers, auto workers, farm workers, the Erie Canal, Old Miss steamships, Mount Rushmore, Stone Mountain, DC, Empire State Building, the KKK, the Red Scare. And I just thought of, we need to add in the Tuskegee Airmen as an interesting thing. I also decided to put in Rosa Parks as a symbol for the moment. Just thinking about what's been kind of left out. But anyway, I'll save the discussion. We're going to talk then about all these symbols and icons, what they're symbols of. why they're something that we're even using. Their origin story, the people involved in each of these either origins or uses, what's going on with these things today, and other ideas that are related. So, for example, related to Lady Liberty, we have Ellis Island. So when we talk about Lady Liberty, we'll talk about her being a symbol of freedom. We'll talk about the Statue of Liberty. We'll talk about the people in France who built the statue and why and how we got it and who made it a thing. And what's going on with the Statue of Liberty today, or with the concept of Lady Liberty today, and the related concept then is Ellis Island. So that's a whole bunch of education in one line. Okay. The third one. The third one has to do with people. So we're looking at the people who are involved with democracies or specific systems. Probably mostly democracies. I think we stuck with that because we have this huge list. So we looked at people at their date of birth and where they were born and what they're notable for. When they did their notable acts. Love to go back and look at my own thinking, right? What they had to do with, or what their demographics were, if there's anything interesting and different, their education level, their profession, their associates, what they affected, I guess, their inspirations and influences, a good quote from each one, an innovation of theirs, and maybe a book if they wrote one. In this case, we only have the chart partway filled out because we wanted to make that part of doing this was to fill out more of the chart or work on it or have other people help research or who knows. We haven't decided yet. That's getting into the depth. So the names. Some you'll know, some you won't. There's Cleisthenes, Adam Smith, Karl Marx, Robert Owen, Benito Mussolini, Mao Zedong, Thomas Jefferson, Eleanor Roosevelt, RFK Sr., John Lewis, Bennett Riley, Peter Hardeman. I wrote Burnett, don't know who that is right at the moment. Pat Brown, Ronald Reagan, Jerry Brown, Gavin Newsom, Kelsey and Stone. That's very local to me. Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, J.S. Mill, Golda Meir, Menachem Begin, Anwar Sadat, Yasser Arafat, Moshe Dayan, Joseph Goebbels, Leni Riefenstahl, Herbert Hoover, FDR, LBJ, Harvey Milk, Christina Jorgensen, Cesar Chavez, George Wallace. That is half. So I'm not going to read any more right now. When we get to that list, we'll talk about it. And you can see now why each thing is going to be broken down and broken down and broken down. And that's how we get it to the kind of level that I'm talking about. Right now, in this casual discussion, and even going through these charts at a deeper level is like I said, it's a high school BA level of education, maybe broader than most, but still about that level. But as we get into filling out the charts and comparing and contrasting and the lesser known people and figuring out how they fit into history, now we're starting to get into the BAMA area. So then the fourth one of this particular series is bringing things into the United States. So we're looking at the governments of the states, essentially. And obviously all of the states. We might look, I put in DC. We could potentially have other territories, but definitely DC because it's connected physically. And looking at the governments, looking at the rights that are guaranteed in that state. Looking at how they create laws in each state, how many counties they have, the biggest city, a couple other cities, so that we could actually start thinking about what's going on in those cities. And in this case, kind of with the current things that are going on with our National Guard, et cetera, and ICE, looking at which are the biggest cities and where they are is also interesting. What's going on with their state militia, police, National Guard. Note, almost all of this was set up at the beginning of this year. So all of this new Trump administration wasn't really taken into account, but because he was reelected and because of my concerns, our concerns, these were developed. So anything you see that seems prescient was prescient. So looking at their equality for women in each state, looking at their ethnic percentages in their population centers, their attitudes towards sanctuary, asylum, refugees, the propaganda, the homelessness and poverty, the attitudes toward LGBTQ plus people, their attitude toward immigrants in general, what immigrants, what kind of immigration is going on, what percentages of people of color, non-white, non-Christian, and that, attitudes and laws for disabled people, seniors, how they treat pregnancy, women issues, how they treat journalists, how they treat weed, how they deal with taxes. All those things about the states. And if you're thinking about relocating, if you're thinking about where to go, if you're having a certain kind of problem, this is the kind of education that would be handy. And a lot of it's resources. While I do have a chart and the chart's partially filled out, a lot of it's more knowing where to look for the information rather than necessarily having a chart about it. And then finally, for this chunk that we're doing, is looking at worldwide implications. And to do that, there's a list of countries. And this is even less filled out because I thought it was even more of an advanced kind of an approach to be looking at all the different countries in the world. But we did list all the countries. We have links to something for all of the countries that has to do with the history and demographics. And then we want to talk about immigration, survivalism, policing, the media, NGOs, and their crops. I'm hesitating because I'm remembering that I have more than one sheet on each of these spreadsheets, but we will get to those in due time. Everything that has more depth, right? So I said it was two-dimensional. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's three-dimensional after all. So that's going to take the next 5 videos, is to go into depth on each one of the ones that I've introduced to you now. And I think this is probably a good place to end. And I'm hoping eventually I'll have a standard beginning and ending so that I don't sound awkward, right? Okay, well, have a good evening, and I'll see you in the next day or two with the first more in-depth section, the first one we went over today.